The Model Shop live scale modeling show is brought to you by Tenant Controls, makers of lighting kits, soundboards, and more. Tenant Controls brings your models to life. And by HDA ModelWorks, suppliers of scale model lighting products, detail parts, and complete model kits. Visit HDAModelWorks.com today. Well, hello there, everybody. Boyd here with you, and welcome to the Model Shop Live Scale Modeling Show. Coming to you this week again from our shop here in San Antonio, Texas. Having some really nice fall-like weather down here. I hope you guys are having some nice weather where you're at. It's we're into October now, so working our way towards Halloween. I wanted to talk about that right at the top of the show here. We've got a lot of people participating in our Halloween group build at our Model Shop community on the Google site, and we're going to start off tonight's show taking you over there and showing you all the progress going on. A lot of model building going on there, a lot of activity. That's always really good to see. I just wanted to say it's great to be back this week after taking last week off. A lot of us here are Star Trek fans, so I took last week off and took in the first episode of the new Star Trek TV series, Discovery. And so we'll kind of, at the end of the show here during our Q&A and chat session, we'll have a little roundtable discussion, and I'd be interested to hear what all you guys out there that are fans thought about the show. I had some thoughts on it myself, and mostly I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. We'll just have to see how it kind of goes from here. So, but it was cool to see Star Trek back on TV again, and hope it runs for a long time. I'm really looking forward to the direction they take it in. So we've got a great show in store for you guys tonight. We're going to start off things like I said, going over to the community and having a look at what's going on over there. We got a lot of really interesting builds in progress going on. Some of the people have already completed their Halloween builds this year for our group community build. I finished up the kits myself. I got kind of carried away this year and I think I did 5 kits altogether, but you know me, I'm a big Halloween buff, and my favorite holiday of the year, so I always have a lot of fun with that. But I got this huge box that came in last week, and we're going to show you guys what we got, a little surprise. This is something that I'm going to be starting up here on my TrekWorks YouTube channel. For those of you out there who are fans of the original Jerry Anderson television shows, going way back to you know, the puppet versions of the shows like Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet and Stingray and all that, all the way up through the live action shows that they did with UFO and Space 1999. I was always a really big fan of the UFO TV series. Unfortunately, it didn't run for very long. I think there's only like 26 or 27 episodes, but that was my favorite of all the shows that they did, and I've always been a fan of all the vehicles and the gadgets and everything that they had for that show. So this box came all the way from the UK. I was lucky enough to find a couple of really cool model kits. One of them is the Shadow Mobile 1. It was one of the ground vehicles that they had in the TV series, kind of a tank-looking thing. And then the other one is the actual alien UFO itself, which was a really interesting design. Kind of had that, spinning effect. Those of you that watch the show will know exactly what I'm talking about. But these are fantastic kits. I had to save my pennies to get these. They weren't exactly cheap, but if it's something out there like a lot of you guys know that you really want, you just save up your pennies, and when you can get it, you can get it. So we finally got it in here, and these are huge kits. I think the Shadowmobile is about something like this long. They're studio scale models, and they're really accurate. So we're going to do a really cool in-depth build series over on the TrekWorks channel. I'll start off a little bit later this upcoming week, with part 1. So those of you out there who are UFO fans, you'll really have fun with this one. It's going to be really cool. We're going to do some nice lighting and electronics and some painting and all that, the usual things. So I can't wait to get started on them. I was going to do the phaser rifle there first, but these kits are really near and dear to my heart, so I'm really excited about starting on that. And then we'll show you that on the bench tonight for our model kit review, and then we're going to also be doing a little bit on the bench tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about craft acrylic paints. They seem to be really catching on in the hobby. They were kind of, I think one of the first people to start extensively using them out there was Chris Cortell over at Classic Plastic 101. He's been working with those for quite a while, and he was getting really good results with all those. I started out using them when I started doing a little bit of figure modeling, which was totally new to me. I hadn't done a whole lot of that, and I've been learning about the paints and what they work good for and what they don't work so good for. And I'm going to kind of share some of my experiences with you guys on some of that on the bench tonight. We'll talk about those type of paints versus some of the other like regular acrylic paints and some out of the off the shelf paints that are out there to help out some of the new people out there. Or maybe if you've been using some other type of paints and you've been considering using the craft acrylic paints, this might give you a little bit of an idea of whether they're for you or not. So we'll get to that towards the end of the show, but for now we're going to start off, and we're going to take a quick break here so I can get the page set up and everything, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at what's going on over at the Model Shop Google community. We got a ton of stuff going on over there, a lot of really interesting builds going on, so we'll be back with that in just a second. Everybody stay tuned. See you in a second. Okay, everybody. Well, we're back with you again. Check and make sure we're recording here and everything's working. Looks like we're okay. So here we are at the Model Shop community page, and we've got a lot going on. We've got some updates that constantly are coming in from people working on their projects out there, and we like to share that with everybody out there each and every week when we broadcast our show. If you guys are not members of our community, we invite you to join. We've got a lot of really friendly people here that are busy building a lot of models and sharing their building tips and information and talking about new kits that are coming out, new products, all kinds of really cool stuff. If you're into the hobby of scale modeling, you'll find everything you need here right at this community, so it's a great place to hang out. And we welcome everybody. We build all types of models here, so it's just a lot of fun. And let's start off here at the very top. We've got Heath Tompkins, our good friend from the land down under. He's down there in Australia. And Heath has been working on the, I think it's a 1/25th scale General Lee, the classic 69 Dodge Charger, and he's got a nice little picture here of the work he's been doing on the model so far. You can see he's got his wheels done up here at the top, those classic American racing wheels that they had on the General Lee. Got the engine going on here, some looks like some Hemi orange paint on that. Got the exhaust headers done. Working on the chassis there. It looks like he's getting ready to put together the suspension and everything. So looking good so far, Heath. Thanks for giving us an update on that. And then we've got Bob Busking, who's also one of our active guys here. Bob builds all kinds of models. You might catch him building cars or airplanes or just about anything under the sun. So here he's working on this really nice looking 71 Plymouth GTX. I always did like this body style myself. And he's got the plum crazy purple color going on. That looks like an original Chrysler color on the car. And he's doing all of his detail work on it. Says he's getting pretty close to the end. Got a nice gloss finish on that. Looking good, Bob. I think Bob is into the old classic Detroit muscle cars. He builds quite a few of those. Always does a really nice job on them. So there's a nice update from Bob. Looking forward to the finish on that one, Bob. Thanks for sharing that with us. And then we've got Mike Kovach here, which I was anxious to show you guys this one. Mike has done an incredible job on this. This kit that you're seeing here is a, I think it's a 68. I could be wrong, but I think he started off with a 68 Plymouth, maybe it was a Roadrunner or if it was a GTX. I can't remember, but he wanted to create the recreate the Adam 12 car from the original TV series Adam 12. So basically what Mike did here, and he's been taking you through this whole process on his YouTube channel, he basically created a four-door body out of a two-door hardtop, and you can see all the modifications he's done to this. Now Mike went to the trouble of actually taking the original body from the kit and molding a new body, a copy of it, with resin. And so if you guys out there are interested in learning how to do molding and things like that, you can head over to Mike Kovach's YouTube channel. It's called Kovach Industries. And you can see the process that Mike went through. He does a really good job explaining what he did and shows you the step-by-step process so you can learn how to do your own molding. And he recreated this body and basically did some scratch building and some extra detail work on it and turned it into a four-door. And it looks really convincing. You did a really good job on this, Mike. And so there you have the Adam 12. Now, four-door model kits actually are really hard to find. I went through the same problem a couple years ago when I was trying to recreate the car that I wanted to do for the to go along with my dual truck, if you guys remember that one. Wanted to do the Plymouth Valiant, and they of course didn't make a four-door version of that. So you have to take it into your own hands sometimes and just do a little bit of work and a little bit of research, and this is what you can do. And it turned out great, Mike. It looks really awesome. I'm really impressed with that. And he's got the figures there. He created a nice little diorama to go with it. He's got his police gear inside the car and everything. So that turned out really cool, Mike. Wonderful job on that. And so that's the kind of stuff we have going on around here. Some really neat stuff, some really creative people, and it's really nice to see. Here we've got another one from Bob Busking. This is the looks like one of the UGH model kits. Let's take a look at this. UGH is a really cool little company that's kind of just getting their feet wet in the modeling community with producing these little small scale resin kits, mostly a lot of Star Trek stuff. We did a review on a couple of their kits a few months ago, and here's their version of the Daedalus, which as you can see is a Star Trek TOS era type ship with the old school looking warp nacelles on it, and Bob's doing some work getting that put together. It's looking really good there, Bob. So yeah, you could head over to the UGH.com website and you can see all the different kits that they have available. They seem like some really nice people, and they've got a really wide category of model kits already, as for as little as long, you know, they haven't been in business that long, so it's great to see that they're getting busy and looks like they're doing well. Here we have Aussie Trekkie is progressing on his 1/200 scale USS Missouri. So you can head over to Scott's channel at Aussie Trekkie on YouTube and follow along with the progress on that one. We've got one of our really busy builders that's been with the community since the beginning here, Omar, who, Omar, it was good to hear Omar made it back home. Omar lives down in Florida, and his family was affected by the hurricane down there, and he had to leave town for a while, but he's back at it now, back on the bench, and he's working on his Halloween group build project, and this is the classic Crypt Keeper figure. And as you can see, Omar is a really talented artist, and he does a great job with his paint detail and all that, and it's looking really, really cool. Definitely looks the part. Got some nice texture going on there on the garb and everything. And that's a face only a mother could love, that's for sure. But it's looking really good, Omar. And looking forward to the finish on that one. Thanks for sharing that. And we've got Gary Jacquard there. That's, as you can see, he's building the old classic AMT Enterprise Bridge, which that kit's been around forever, and they re-released that a couple of years ago. Now you get to build the entire bridge, the full circle. So that's cool. You can come over to our page and check that out. Got Jim Clark, who looks like he built the Munster's living room. I just recently finished up that kit myself. Really fun kit to work on. Let's see if he's got some still pictures here. Yeah, here we go. Did a really nice job on it. Looks like he's got the fireplace lit up and everything there. He's got all the characters. He's got Lily and Grandpa and Herman and little Eddie there with his Wolf doll. I just had a blast working on this kit too. I think it's a really cool little kit, and it's not a bad kit either. It's you know, as I mentioned on when I showed the video of my build on this, you know, the old Aurora company that originally produced this way back in the 60s, probably around 65 or 66, because I think this kit came out when the original Munster show was still on TV and it was brand new. You know, the old Aurora monster kits and everything, they used to get kind of knocked for not being very accurate and not fitting very well and everything, but this particular kit goes together really nice. The seams are minimal on the figures and everything, and it doesn't take much to clean it up, and you can see in these shots here that the likenesses of the characters are really good too. I think they all look pretty nice, and you just get a lot. You can have a whole lot of fun with your imagination and the way you paint it and everything. So Jim did a great job putting this together. Got the all the little details going on there, and did some extra touches with the lighting and everything. Looks like he's got Herman's electrical gear there on his chair lit up and all that. And there's a picture of the original box art. You can get this kit both in a standard plastic and a glow-in-the-dark version. I kind of found out the hard way that there were two kits available, and I was able to get the lighting done on mine, but I do recommend, if you do plan on lighting this kit, that you might want to make sure that you get the glow-in-the-dark version. It's a little bit easier to light up the plastic through the glow-in-the-dark stuff than it is the other way, which it comes molded in a sort of a light tan styrene. But it can still be done. But yeah, some great detail work on his woodwork there and everything. The fireplace looks great. You can see there's just a whole lot of fun to be had with that kit. So great job on that one. And let's see, we've got, scroll on down here. Mark Shoe's working on a Herman Munster kit, so some more Munster stuff going on. The Munsters are always really popular for Halloween. And we have John Hunt that just recently completed these models. These all turned out really nice. Let's have a look at these. Some Star Wars action going on there. Got the I'm not even going to be able to tell you what these ships are, guys, because I'm not that big into Star Wars, but I do know that that's the Millennium Falcon. You Star Wars people are probably going to know exactly what these are, but just a wonderful job on all of them. You can see the detail and the weathering and everything. Love that cutaway Falcon. But you got some really nice looking aging and weathering that we see a lot on the Rebel ships. Some lighting in the cockpit there. Really cool stuff. And the Falcon just looks awesome. I think I'm going to have to get one of those cutaway kits. I'm seeing people building those up, and they really look cool when they're done. Really nice. And I know there's some nice aftermarket stuff for that kit, like photo etch and all that too. But beautiful job detailing them all out. They look wonderful. And sorry I didn't know what the other ships were, but I'm sure the Star Wars fans here will figure that out. Let's see. We've got Lee Chambers. He's been working on his War of the Worlds diorama, and this is turning out really cool. As you can see, he mentions here in this post that he picked up this. I'm going to scroll to the back of this here first so it makes a little bit more sense to you guys. He bought this little farmhouse kit in the proper scale, and then he did quite a bit of modifying to it to create the scene from the classic War of the Worlds, where the two main characters are hiding out in this sort of farmhouse, and one of the alien ships, one of the Martian ships, kind of crash lands right next to it, and then they send the probe inside, you know, that famous scene. So you can see from going from this basic look of the house here to all the damage that he did to it and all the detail, that's quite a bit of work. And then created all the landscape and everything around it. Looks really awesome. And then detailed out the interior, and he's got the Martian ship hovering above it. And of course it sends in the probe there. He's got a bunch of LEDs inside there for simulating, you know, fire and things like that. So that's really, really cool. And here's the probe going inside the house. And there it is, and it looks just like a shot out of the movie, so that's really awesome work, Lee. Can't wait to see that all finished up. And of course the actual alien Martian war machine that he built is not the Pegasus one that a lot of people are familiar with. It's a larger kit. I think he said it was a vacuum-formed kit, and I think we showed that on our last show. A little update on that. And then here we have Ian Hamilton, who's starting on the Pegasus Dragon Slayer model kit. That's another kit that I'd like to build sometime in the future. Always like the look of that dragon. The Leona Timber Company with his beginning work on the Wicked Witch kit from Wizard of Oz. That's a really, really nice resin kit that they put out. As you can see, look at the gorgeous detail in there of the figures and everything inside the crystal ball. And when you do all the paint work on that, it turns out absolutely just fantastic. So looking forward to seeing more on that. We have Gadgetron talking about, he's our kind of roving news reporter. Reports a lot on our page here for us, and this is another new kit that's coming out from a Japanese company. I don't remember the name of the company here, but the he gives the name of the ship here, the Martian Successor Nadesco or something like that. Never heard of it myself, but it's a new kit that's going to be available based on some Japanese television show. And then we have John Smith, who's working on the one of the Mobius Raptor kits from the reimagined Battlestar Galactica. And I had a look at this one earlier today, and he's doing some really awesome work on the interior lighting and all the view screens and everything that are inside the interior cockpit detail. He's got their uniforms and helmets looking really, really awesome. This is, I think this is actually a video, and this won't play on this format here for us, but you can see what he's got going on there. I mean, it's looking really, really cool. So I'm sure we'll have some nice Maybe if the next show we do, we'll have some nice still pictures to show you that. Maybe he'll be a little bit further along. But just fantastic work. Get back down here. We've got a long ways to go, guys. I saw a lot of updates this week. And we've got another really interesting project going on here from Murphy Peoples. Now, Murphy is basically doing a scratch build of the Spindrift ship from the original television show Land of the Giants. Everything from recreating the crew figures to completely scratch building the interior. And he gives some detail in his write-up there that him and his wife are both working on this together. His wife is some type of a graphic designer, and she's helping him create a lot of these panels and everything that we see inside the ship. So it's just looking outstanding so far. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more of that. And got a couple of kits that Paul Reese picked up. The let's see, one's the Mogwai from the Gremlins movies, and then a nice resin figure of Clint Eastwood from Every Which Way But Loose, which that is a really good likeness of Clint Eastwood there. And Clyde, the orangutan, his sidekick from the movie, so that'll be cool to see that one done. Those are some interesting kits you don't see every day. And I think Paul's over in the UK. I think he mentions here he picked them up at a show over there. So yeah, you can find some really cool kits at model shows. Greg Bryan working on the MPC World War II Jeep in 1/25th scale. So that'll be interesting to see that one. And Ken Zimmerman with an update on Robbie the Robot he's been building. It's on his YouTube channel. And here's a really nice diorama that was done by Roy Outsider 238. This is actually the Pegasus kit, the smaller scale kit. That's actually a styrene kit, and he did a really nice diorama, kind of similar to what Lee did there, but just in a little different scale. He's got the farmhouse there with the War Machine hovering above it. He's got some sound effects going on. I think he used the Tenet Controls lighting kit on that. And here we have another cutaway Falcon build. This is by Matt Alkire. Matt's a good friend of mine, and I know Matt's been working on this for a long time, and it just came out fantastic. And we'll take you through a few pictures of that. You can see you can put a ton of detail into this kit, and you know, it's an MPC, it's an old MPC kit, and it's not thought of as being one of the better Millennium Falcon kits, but you can see what you can do with a little bit of work. And there's some, you know, aftermarket photo etch parts available for it and things like that. You can really bring this kit out, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. He's mentioning here in his write-up that he's just finishing up with some of the weathering on it. He doesn't want to go too far on the weathering, which is important. You don't want to dirty it up too much, but it's looking really, really good. I think it really looks the part. And then, of course, you've got the extra panel here with this kit where you can close it all back up if you want to. So that's really, really cool. So thanks for sharing that one, Matt. Beautiful job on that. Go on down the line here. Got a nice update from Tag at Tagamo Model Works. He's working on the this is his Halloween build for this year. This is the werewolf kit from Curse of the Werewolf. It was a Spanish-produced Hammer film. It's kind of a rare one that you don't see very often, but it was one of the better, for back in the day, it was one of the really spectacular film transformations between character, where the character was played by Oliver Reed, kind of a famous actor from the UK. When he transforms into the werewolf, it was one of the better done on-screen transformations that you'll ever see. It was just fantastic, and the movie's actually really good. So if you haven't seen that one this year for Halloween, you might want to check that one out. And then we have our good friend Calvin Sweet, who finished up his version of the Hex Marks the Spot model kit. Let's show you that one. I had an absolute blast building this kit myself. It's just such a fun kit. You can see all the detail that's in this kit, and Cal made some modifications to it and made it more to his liking. You can see he added the carriage here for the he scratch built this out of wood for the cannon, since the cannon just kind of comes just laying on the deck here, and he added some realistic kind of wood detail to the broken off mast and some chain here to hold the lantern and actually hold the cannon in place, and just did a lot of really cool stuff on it. Some of his paintwork here for the pirate. Nice wood detail there on the ship's wheel. Got the guy popping out of the cabinet there in the front, which is a pretty interesting feature on this kit. It's kind of a rubber band powered spring-loaded action figure that pops out of there. Really nice job on that, Cal. And let's see, let's roll on down the line here some more. Still got a lot more to show you guys. This a lot of updates this week. Let's see. T Commando working on his diorama. He's doing a Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea diorama for Halloween, featuring the haunted World War I German submarine that they found. He's coming along nicely on that. Some more from Omar on his detail work on his Tales from the Crypt. Nice little tip here for you modelers out there for the TOS Enterprise. This is the actual paint that the people at the Smithsonian used for coating the Bassard domes on the original 11-foot model. It's a transparent amber colored paint from Krylon called Sea Glass, so that's definitely something I'll be getting a hold of because I really like the way that looks on the 11-foot model. I've been using some kind of copper type paint here myself on the last few that I've built, but I'm going to pick some of this up and give it a try. I think it'll add some nice detail and create that diffused look that you want to have on those domes if you're going to be lighting it up. And then let's see, we have Galaxy Stranger working on the ME-163 Comet and the 262 World War II rocket plane and jet fighter. Another update there from Bob on his GTX. Here's PJC's Halloween build. I thought this look turned out really cool. This is the Ghost of the General Lee, and you can see he's created a glow-in-the-dark feature for the flag on the top and everything. And the car just looks really cool. It's got that really neat-looking shimmer to it in low light. And there's what it looks like in regular lighting. So that turned out really cool. And we keep... I'm thinking that once in a while we might stick on the where we were here, but it just keeps rolling back to the top of the page. I wish I could figure out how to stop it from doing that, but we'll just put up with it here. Get back to where we were. Let's see. Got Ed Fugate, who's doing a Halloween build for our group build this year of Elvira's, I think this is a 58 Plymouth T-Bird. They actually made a Elvira Thunderbird kit, which is just like her car that she had in the first film, with the leopard skin seats and the skull hubcaps and everything, and custom spiderweb grill and all that, so I'm looking forward to seeing that one coming along. Got Jeff Hunt building the, let's see, this is the ARC-170 fighter from the Star Wars prequels. Derek Sabora doing the Ecto-1, doing some lighting and everything on it. And Ken Zimmerman doing a Mr. Spock build. Here's a nice one from Armando Della Cabada. This is the Captain America Ultimate Soldier. Another nice figure build from Armando. You can see he's got all the detail painted on this, and he explained that he used he created some custom straps for the interchangeable shields that are on this kit, and used magnets so that you could easily switch from one shield to the other, which I thought was a really clever idea. But you can see he's got some nice paint work going on here, and here's a close-up of the straps that he made on the backs of the shields, and the magnets that hold everything in place on the arm there. So that's a really clever idea, and it looked like it worked out really good. Nice crisp paint work as usual from Armando there. Looking really good. Let's see, we'll just go through a few more here, guys, and I think we're getting kind of close to the end here. Start running into stuff that we showed you last time. Another figure that Armando did there from, I'm not familiar with this one. 11, aka Ellie from Stranger Things. I've yet to see an episode of that. I guess it's a pretty good show, but that's one of the characters on that show. And then, of course, he completed his Zvezda Star Destroyer and did some fiber optic lighting on that one. We'll check that one out here real quick. You can see that's just a huge kit, because that's the 172 scale Fine Molds Millennium Falcon next to it, and it makes that look small. So that is a huge model kit. I have that kit from Revell here myself, and hopefully we'll get to that one sometime over the winter. A lot of drilling to do all that fiber optic work, but it turned out really nice. He's got it set up with its own internal power supply. He mounted a lithium-ion battery on the inside of it, so it's self-powered, which is a neat idea. Came out really nice. Hey, we actually stuck on the bottom of the page that time. We're getting somewhere. And then John Hunt with some up-close pictures of his cutaway Falcon interior. Some more of the interior view of the Raptor that John Smith is working on there. And a lot of here's an example of some of the neat things we have going on here. This is Gadgetron reporting on some modeling tips, showing that you can make your own custom sanding sticks, and he talks about where you can get everything, so a really nice little tip there for you. Got James Kirk working on I'm not sure what that is. Let me see if I click on the pictures here. It's definitely something Star Wars, I think. A wing off of something. I'm sure all you Star Wars people know exactly what it is. Then again, it might not be Star Wars. It looks kind of Star Wars colored. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Doesn't say. And I don't recognize the design. That could be a Star Trek ship, maybe a Kazon ship or something like that. I am not sure. Anyways, it looks great. Okay, we'll scroll down here towards the bottom one more time, guys, and then call this a wrap. Just want to continue to thank everybody for sharing all this stuff with us here on the page. It wouldn't be anything without all the people contributing to it. And you can see it's obvious that everybody puts a lot of work into these builds, and we're very fortunate to be able to see them and learn from what other people are doing, so it's really appreciated. Another Star Destroyer from Ian Hamilton. These big Zvezda kits or Revell kits are going to be really, really popular for the next year or so. Ted Pilzini, I can't pronounce that name. I hope I pronounce it right. Ted Pilzini. He's working on the Mobius Pegasus, doing some fiber optic lighting there. And then there's Murphy People's Spindrift. This one I thought was really interesting too. If we've got some still pictures we can show you. If you guys are fans of, yeah, it's a video, I can't show it to you here, but if you go to the page and click on this video, this is the interior set of the classic James Bond movie Moonraker, that whole moon base area that they had in there. You guys have got to check this out. This is all scratch built. All the display screens in there. The you know, it's the launch control for all the shuttles that they had in the movie Moonraker, complete with the original seating and the whole 9 yards. I mean, like it's like you're on the studio set, and it's all done by scratch. So yeah, you guys have to definitely check that one out. That was really some amazing work. I've never seen that one done before. So, well, we'll call that a wrap for this week, guys. That was really cool, and as I said, we'll be back on the next show. We'll have some more updates for you from the page. Let me get back to the main camera here. We'll show you guys some more updates off of the community page next week, or the next show we do, which will be a week from next Sunday. And there's always some really interesting stuff going on. And don't forget, you know, we're still doing our community build for Halloween this year. So it's the 1st of October today. You've got until the 28th to submit your pictures for the slideshow that we're going to put together. It's a kind of become a tradition here every year. I'll put together a slideshow of all the models that people submit for the Halloween group build, so we can kind of do a nice little tribute and showcase and show everybody's work all in one place. And we'll broadcast that on our Halloween show this month. And that will be on the 29th, I believe. That's a Sunday. The show will be on its regular Sunday night. Halloween, I think, is actually on a Monday or Tuesday this year, which is kind of a bummer. But so the show will be on the 29th, but the 28th is the cutoff. I have to have a little time to get the pictures all in and edit them all together and get it all set up so I can run it the next day. So, but you got plenty of time. You can still join in, and if you've already built a kit and you got time to build another one, go ahead. I built 5. I'm a little bit crazy, but build as many as you want. We'll put them all in there. And so have fun with it, everybody. We're really enjoying seeing everything that's been going on so far. All right, time for another quick break. We'll come back, and I'll be on the bench showing you the Shadow Mobile kit and the UFO. So we'll be right back after that, right after the break, everybody. See you then. Okay, everybody, back with you again, and I'm going to start bringing these parts out here one at a time and showing you our really cool kits that we got in from they came all the way over from the UK. We'll start off first here with the Shadow Mobile 1, which is sort of a land-based tank kind of vehicle. I'm sure a lot of you people that followed the show will know exactly what this is. Um, I'll show you first that the kit came with this really cool little sort of file book here, and they give you they give it to you in a presentation like it's a classified file. You know, you got the Shadow um, logo there, and it talks a little bit about what their mission was and everything. Of course, they were a secret organization that was battling an alien UFO invasion based all around the world. They could respond from the land, the sea, and the air. You know, you had all these different vehicles. You had Skydiver, which was a airborne vehicle that launched from an underwater um, submarine, and then you had the Shadow mobile vehicles that were running around on the ground, and then you had you had all these different things going on. It was just a really cool. And then they had a base on the moon and all this stuff, and a kind of a probe that orbited around and monitored for incoming UFOs. But you have to watch the show to find out all about. Here, this is just a list of all the parts, and then some basic instructions. Typical of a lot of these garage kits, the instructions are not super detailed, like we're used to seeing with a regular production model kit. But you can figure it out, just by looking at pictures and all that. They talk about the types of materials to use for the assembly. They're recommending some two-part epoxy here, so that you have, it's a resin kit, so you can use CA or CA Gorilla Glue or whatever you want to use, but some of that stuff sets up pretty quick, and some of these parts have to be put together at a certain angle and things like that, so you want to make sure you're working with something that doesn't set up right away, so you've got time to make sure everything's square and all that. So they say, like you can tack together some parts with CA and get it kind of in its general position, and then if you have to tweak on it a little bit, you can crack that loose and then go back and work with your epoxy and to finalize all the joints and everything. There's some information in here about your basic rule of thumb whenever you're working with resin kits. Well, any kits in general, you want to clean the parts really good. That's sort of a must. You want to wash. In my case, I'll usually wash all my parts in some warm water with Dawn dishwashing detergent, because that's a really good. It'll cut grease or silicone or anything that might be on there, and rinse it off really good, and then dry it, and then you're ready to go. And then I'll usually take either a Scotch-Brite pad or some really fine steel wool and scuff the parts up, and then I'll put my adhesion promoter on there. Now, it sort of depends. Like if you're gonna have something that you're gonna be doing like multiple colors on it, you're not gonna just spray the whole thing one color and then be done with it. You don't have to worry so much about it then. But if you're gonna be doing masking and pulling tape off of it and stuff like that, I've talked about this a lot, but if you're going to be doing that, which we are going to be doing in this case, you want to make sure that your paint is really stuck on there good. There's nothing worse than applying a really nice coat of paint, your primer, and then you got your paint over the top of it, and you pull a big chunk of paint off somewhere when you're doing masking and all that, because that'll leave a big crater in your paint, and it's a real pain to go back and fix that. So you want to do all your prep work and kind of follow that like as a rule of thumb. And if you do that, it won't let you down. But they talk about that a little bit, and then they get into they've got these nice full color pictures here of the assembly. You start off first by building the undercarriage with all the bogies and the drive wheels and everything. Like I said, it sort of has a tank-like drive on the bottom side of it. And then you get into building the actual coach part of it, or the cab area and the rear part here. The two sides go together, the rear panel and the roof, and you can see it starting to take shape here. Now, they had this feature on these vehicles where there was a round turret and a square sort of rocket launcher tube that could pop up out of the top of these things. So I'm probably going to mount the turret on the top, just in its position, but I think on the rocket launcher thing here, it sort of tilted up when it deployed. So I think I'm going to work on putting some kind of a hinge in there and making that have the ability to be able to pop up and down and open and close when I want it to. But here's an up-close shot of the interior cockpit detail, and you do get a driver figure with this that's in scale. These were taken off of the original studio models, so this is the detail that was in there on the original filming miniature. And here you can see they're moving on a little bit further. You've got, in this shot here, the cab, the roof of the cab's not put on yet, but here the cab goes on and you got the glass that goes in and everything. And then here you're putting together the tank treads, which are really nice. They're like multi-segmented, made out of flexible rubber. And here's the rear bulkhead for, you know, all the detail that was on that. And then some detail on the roof of the cab here. And then you're starting to get into some of the exterior details here. This is what the back of the vehicle looks like. Here's a nice side shot of it. Just like I said, a really, really cool looking vehicle. And then they talk about the paint, which I actually have already got the paint for this. I usually don't like to use off-the-shelf paints, but I found the exact shade that they recommended made by Duplicolor, so I'm going to actually use that. And the drive wheels here, surprisingly, it's kind of hard to tell what they look like on screen when you're watching the show because there's always a lot of dust, you know, floating around them when it's moving, but they actually were this sort of green color here because these were taken from the original studio miniature, and so we'll be going with that. Now there's a little detail they show you here that's molded on the side of the resin part, which apparently this little detail was only on the... They had 4 different versions of this vehicle. One was called Shadow Control, which had a giant radar dish on the top of it, and the other 3 were pretty much similar, but for some reason number 3 only had this little extra detail on the side of it. So we're going to be doing Shadow 1, so I'll have to sand this little part off here, which is what they tell you to do. And here's some more shots of the completed model, and you can see we've got some stripes to paint on. Now they do give you the decals for that, but I'm going to go ahead and paint all that on there. I'll just use these markings here for the decals and all that. We'll paint the red stripe on that goes around here. I can probably get this a little bit closer for you there. Getting a lot of glare, but it even actually comes with some wire mesh to put in here at the top. And here's the decal sheet, which is all really nice and accurate, all in scale. So there's that. So let's start having a look at some of the parts here. This is the side panel of the body, the main, you know, part of the body. Now, as I showed you there, the cab is separate, so this piece looks kind of funny up in the front here, but here's that actual part they were talking about right there that needs to be sanded off. But there's some really nice scribed work and panel detail on this. These are just stains that are in this. They're not pits or anything. It's just, that'll totally disappear the minute you put some primer on it. But I've still got to wash these parts and get them scuffed up and everything and ready to take some adhesion promoter and some paint. But all these panel lines on here are raised where all the white stripes are supposed to go. So that'll make that really easy to mask that off and paint that. So just to give you an idea of the scale, this is a can of Testor's Dull Coat next to it. So you can see it's going to be a pretty good sized model, and I'll have a hell of a time figuring out where to put it when I'm done, but I'll figure out somewhere. These kits are definitely worth it. And then we've got, let's see here, digging into the parts. Here's a bag of all the individual links to the tracks, and these are made out of some really nice flexible rubber. They recommend gluing these together one segment at a time with some CA glue, so we'll be doing that. And here's one of the main drive wheels, again next to that Testor's Dull Coat. It's actually bigger around than that can, so that'll give you another idea of the scale of that. Pretty good sized. And here is the bottom chassis. I'll take this out of the bag. It's not a lot to look at. It's just kind of the bottom pan there that everything goes on. Now, there are some people out there that take these kits and they motorize them and make them into RC. There's a to me a tank or remote control tank kit that's out there. I think they said it's the Pershing tank, that you can take the drive gear and everything and put it in this and get all this, the actual working suspension and the sounds and the whole 9 yards. But I'm just going to build this up as a static model. I'm going to put some sound effects and lighting into it for the cannon firing effect and the that kind of thing. But I'm not going to bother motorize. I don't want to drive it out in the yard and get it all beat up and everything. So, but the ones I've seen are really cool, the work that they did to them. But this is a really hefty piece here, and it's going to be a really heavy model. I think the whole thing came over in the box. It was close to 30 pounds, so that's a lot of resin. Let's see, we'll get you some more parts here. Here's the cab, which you can see will go on something like this. Whoops. There's another little filler panel that goes in there, but it goes on something like that. But this is the where all the glass and everything goes, so this all has to be cut out, and that's not a problem. We'll just drill that out and take our file and get that all cleaned up. That part of it's been molded in a lot thinner resin than the rest of it, but the detail on this is really, really nice. It's done, I mean, they've captured everything that was on the original studio model, so it's great. And of course we're going to put lighting in it and everything. There were some headlights at the front and all that. Side panel, it's kind of the same as the other one. See what else we can find in here. Here's the top panel. Yeah, there's a filler panel that goes in between the cab and the but this is that they've actually got the mesh detail already molded into this, and it's pretty good. You could probably get away with that just the way it is. Just do some dry brushing on that and bring that out with a wash. But there's all the detail on the roof, and there's some more things that go on the sides here. But we'll be using that real wire mesh that they give you with this kit and put it in there, and that should look really nice. And these are just I'm going to show more of this on the first video that I make of this kit too, when I put it out on the TrekWorks channel. You'll be able to see it a little bit better. For some reason, well, shooting with my regular high-definition camera, you're going to see it a lot clearer than you do on this live broadcast. This is just a webcam. But these are more parts that go to the main body of the vehicle. The back panel, the top panel, and all that. Here's another huge piece that's part of the bottom. And it's this piece here basically goes on like that. And you've got the front lower section. You can kind of see it there is where the headlights and everything are, which that all has to be drilled out and everything, so we can put some LEDs in that. But there's some really nice detail in the floor pan and the seating area and all that. It's all been done, so pretty cool. Okay, and we'll show you the this is the driver figure. They call him Driver Dave. He's pretty detailed. He's got a nice sculpt on his head there, and he's even got the Shadow logo on his uniform. Kind of hard to see there, but I think these guys wore like an orange-colored jumpsuit. And I'll check the show again to make sure I get that right. But yeah, we're going to paint him all up and put him in there. And just some more kind of filler panels, some clear parts. We don't want to get those out of the bag. Here's the piece of wire mesh that goes on this area that we just showed you, right in here. So we'll just have to cut that out and put that in there, but you can see that'll make that look really nice. We'll paint that black and everything. So that's kind of the main parts of the Shadow Mobile. So now we'll show you some parts of the Alien UFO kit. Give you an idea how that's going to look. Let me get these other parts out of the way here. So yeah, I'm wanting to start on this kit right now. It just looks like so much fun. Okay, so here you get a couple of really big, I guess this is the biggest pieces to show you so far. Get this cleaned off a little bit. These are some really huge vacuum formed clear parts, so this has to be cut out. But this is the bottom of the body of the UFO, so that'll kind of show you the scale there again. Again, here's next to the tester's can, so it's going to be pretty big. And here's the classic dome shape that goes on the top, which these were transparent parts. There's a couple of small little scuffs on it, but nothing bad at all. I'll be able to polish that right out with some of my polishing compound. And then let's see, we'll start getting some of the UFO parts out here. The UFO kit's actually pretty simple. This piece here, get that. These parts, I think there should be another, yeah, there's a cone type thing that was on top of it. I'll show you that. So here you have, I guess I can take these out of the bag, no harm there. This is a really heavy, thick piece here. This is the bottom that goes kind of like inside this part right here. And then it kind of goes up from there. You have the cone section. Get that out and show it to you. With a bunch of little detail parts that go at the top. But this kind of cone section here sits something like that. And then you have the dome that goes over the top of the whole thing. Like that. And then you have these really nifty looking arms. I'll get one of them out of the bag for you. That come off of it. I think there's like either 15 or 17 arms that came off of it. Like this. And then you have this little piece here. And what they did is they used some really bright chrome reflective tape on the little extension piece there on this part right here, so that it was spinning. It did sort of a strobing effect, you know, and the center part of this thing like spun around really rapidly. In fact, when I was watching a show about how they made it, they had a lot of trouble because you know they did everything on wires, and so whenever they wanted the UFO to bank or whatever when it was turning, they had a lot of trouble getting it to do that because they had this electric motor spinning this whole thing really fast, and that acted like a gyro, and so they had some real problems trying to, you know, control that. But yeah, the main part of the ship is kind of done in a polished aluminum look, and then these little extension pieces here are supposed to look like really, really bright, shiny like chrome. So I think I'm going to take and get some bare metal foil in chrome and put that on here just like they did, you know, use a transfer tape, and that should look really good. And then there's a little bit of green, transparent green detail paintwork that goes on this. Now there have been a few people out there that have actually motorized these, and I'm going to look at that and see, you know, how practical it's going to be. But if it's going to turn out to be a really big deal, I'm not going to worry about it because I don't want to have it fly apart or anything like that. Mainly want it for a nice display. And it'll take a motor that will have to spin pretty fast too, so I can't use any. I don't have any motors here that are fast enough to spin at that rate. They're all motors for the Enterprise and all that, and they spin, you know, pretty slow. So, but we might be able to come up with something. I'll check into that and see how big of a deal that's going to be before we make our final decision there. But it's a really, really cool kit, and it's totally accurate to the original prop. It's exact same size as the original prop was and everything, so should be really, really neat to see when it's done. So for you UFO fans out there, this will be really fun to follow along with. Okay, well I think that's about everything. I'm going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to pack everything back in the box. And as I said, a little bit later this week, maybe around Wednesday or so, I'll put out the first video on the TrekWorks channel. Show you a little bit better, closer, detailed, more detailed view of these parts, and then we're going to start putting some stuff together. I think I'm going to start on the Shadow mobile vehicle first. Get that one done, and then we'll do the UFO at the end. Don't know how long it'll take. It might be 5 parts, it might be 20 parts, I'm not sure, but we'll find out. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys will check it out. All right, we'll take another quick break here and come back, and we're going to come back and put some craft acrylic paints out on the bench here and talk about those a little bit. So we'll see you with that in just a couple seconds. Be right back, everybody. Okay, we're back again for our final segment on the bench tonight, and I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my experience so far with working with these water-based craft acrylic paints. Now I'm still fairly new myself to using these. There's some other people out there in the community who have been, like I mentioned at the top there, Chris Cortell at Classic Plastic 101 is one of the guys I can think of right away. So he's got a lot more experience with this stuff than me, but I've been learning a little bit about this stuff as I go along. And from what I've found out working with it, there are some really good things about it, and there's some other things that you have to kind of keep in mind when you're working with it that make it different than working with regular, Tamiya, Tamiya type paints, or regular acrylics or spray can paints, or you know. Speesecker, like the automotive paint that I normally work with. It just has different properties to it, and of course it's water-based, so everything you do is going to be based around water or some type of a reducer or something that'll work with this stuff to thin it down. Because when you buy some of this, you're going to find out right away that in the bottle itself, it's actually really thick. It's almost, in some cases, I found that depending on what some of the colors are. Sometimes it's almost like a cream. I mean, it's that thick when it comes out. So you have to break it down. Now, if you're going to be doing just basic brush painting, like on, anything you might be doing with regular brushes, you could probably not worry about diluting it too much. I mean, I've painted some things with this stuff already, just dipping my brush right into the bottle and just painting it on, and it seemed to work okay. And the one thing that's really nice about it is that it seems to level really nice when you're working with it, so you don't see a lot of, because it doesn't dry super fast. It doesn't leave a lot of brush strokes in your work, so you can, if you're doing, I primarily have been using this on a lot of the figure builds that I've been doing lately, and I think it works really good for that. I haven't necessarily tried using it on like something like a car body or something like that, and my reasoning for that is that this stuff is, if you spray it, it takes several coats to get a really good even finish is what I found out. Um, and another really important thing about this is that uh, I've gotten bottles of this that had severe what I call chunks in the paint. In other words, if you take and you pour this into a little cup and you dilute it with something like either water or I happen to like to use windshield washer fluid, and I think that's comes on a recommendation from again from Chris Cortell. I think that's what he's breaking this stuff down with in order to spray it and everything. But I found out that like early on when I first started to spray it, I was really getting frustrated because I could spray for a little bit and then all of a sudden it seemed like my airbrush kept clogging up and I couldn't figure out why. I've heard I watched a few different tips here and there about it, and some guys were saying you can help that a little bit by reducing your pressure, your air pressure and everything, and spraying a little bit lower pressure. And I tried that and it did help a little bit, but I found out that every so often it still kept clogging up, and I figured out that uh, it was because there was a lot of small chunks in the paint, and even though you reduce it with something like water or windshield washer fluid, or I think you can even use I haven't tried Windex, but I think you can use Windex. It didn't get rid of the chunks. In other words, it didn't dissolve them or whatever. Now, it might over time, if you let it sit in the cup for a while, it might break it down, but like just basically, breaking it down and reducing it to where it's thin enough to spray through my airbrush, which I'm using an Awadi Eclipse, which has a kind of a medium-sized tip. It's not the smallest and it's not the biggest. I was having a lot of problems where I'd start spraying and it was flowing really good, and all of a sudden it would get down to where it was practically nothing. And so to cure that problem, I started straining the paint. I normally do that anyway, but I thought, well, this is all new paint, in the bottle, and it probably wouldn't need it, but yeah, it does need it. And once I started straining it, I'd look in my strainer and I go, wow, I'd be amazed at how many chunks of pieces of hardened paint were in there. So this stuff can sit on the shelf for quite a while, and that happens. And after I started doing that, I got rid of about 95% of my spraying issues, and then it's just a matter of making sure you get it thin enough. And in my experience, it's been with that it kind of depends on the colors here. Some colors will spray pretty good at thinned out a certain way, and then other ones will require a little bit more or a little bit less thinning. Otherwise, they just will not cover very well at all. I mean, you're going to wind up putting multiple coats on to get thorough coverage, without it looking like streak or whatever. And especially if you're, I think with this stuff, it's much more important to try to match your primer up with the shade of paint that you're going to be, top coating with. So in other words, if it's going to be a dark color like this dark blue here, like this navy blue, you'd want to go with almost like a black or a very, very dark gray primer. A light primer, or something that's light colored, you'll find yourself having to put several coats of this on there to get it completely covered up without, like I said, having it look like it has streaks in it and stuff. And the problem with that is that this is pretty thick paint. And if you have something that's got really, really fine detail on it, like really fine scribe lines or really fine mesh or something like that, you can start burying that in a hurry with this stuff. It's definitely thicker than normal paint. So you have to kind of, like I said, kind of think about all that when you're working with this. And of course, especially if you're going to brush it on, it's just by the very nature of brushing paint on, it's going to be thicker than spraying it on. So kind of keep that in mind. And again, I'm still learning a lot about this stuff, and I have a long ways to go, but these are just my initial, I've gotten quite a few kits under my belt so far with this stuff now, and so I felt like it was time I had enough knowing what I was talking about here a little bit to comment on it. And so, all the different paints have their characteristics, and that's one of them. And the drying time on this, it's not solvent based, so it's pretty slow. You want to make sure that you give it plenty of drying time. You definitely want to put light coats on because you don't want to create any runs. It can run a lot easier than regular paints because you're putting it on very thin, and you're going to have to be patient on getting something, getting it covered up. And then the other characteristic of it that it has that I think that's a little bit, uh, you have to kind of consider what you're going to be working on, is that it being that it's water based, it's going to dry. It's very soft, so it can be easily chipped and scratched, and things like that. So if you're going to have any kind of a piece that you're going to handle it very much, or if it's got moving parts that are going to be rubbing against each other or things like that, I have to say I wouldn't recommend using this kind of paint for that, because it will chip and come off. But the one thing you can do to kind of make that a little bit better is that you can top coat it. You can top coat it with your. One of the best things about this paint is that I have yet to see anything react with it. I've used everything from testers to duplicolor to my automotive, my top grade automotive epoxy resin 2K clear coat, and I have yet to get any kind of reaction with this stuff. Where some of the other solvent-based paints, they're kind of iffy as far as that goes. You may get some kind of reaction where you see spider webs or crinkling or some weird thing that might happen when you're putting your clear coat on. So you can seal this with your regular Tester's dull coat, your gloss coat, uh, whatever kind of brand you're going to use out there, Rust-Oleum, Duplicolor, and give it a little bit extra protection. So like if it's going to be, for example, a car body, a car kit, and you're just going to paint the body and you're going to clear coat it, and you're not going to be handling the model that much. There's no parts that are going to be rubbing or moving, anything like that. You should be perfectly fine. And I know Chris Cortell has used it extensively and not had any problems with it. But those are just a few of my observations, and I've seen a few other people on their channel, or talking about it on a hangout or whatever. They've mentioned that this stuff is a little bit on the soft side, and it's true also in the automotive industry. Cars that are painted with water-based paints, which is becoming more and more prevalent. Almost any car, for example, that's manufactured in Mexico or California, they already require out there that everything they use is all water-based. Well, it's in the business that I've been in, for a long time, refinishing cars. It's been widely known that any car out there that's been painted with a water-based paint, it gets a lot more rock chips on it, like on the front part of the hood and the front of the bumper and all that, because it's just soft. It doesn't dry with the same kind of hard shell that solvent-based paints do. Your acrylics and all that, and urethanes. So that's just a few things to keep in mind when you're working with this paint. But overall, I really like it. I think it's a great value for what you pay for it. I mean, these little bottles, I started buying them at Hobby Lobby, but I've been buying them all now from Walmart instead, because Walmart is cheaper. I'm getting these for like 99 cents a bottle over at Walmart. Some are a little bit more. Some, like some colors cost more, just like in automotive paints, like your reds and everything costs more because there's more pigments. It takes more pigments to make the color red than it does, like, for example, the color blue and brown and things like that, or white or whatever, obviously black. So, but, they're all like right around $1.50 at the most, and all the way down to like 99 cents. And then they'll often have a sale on them, so you can get them even cheaper, or buy 3 get 1 free, stuff like that. So for the dollar, these are excellent quality, and I've been really pleased. Basically, all the Halloween kits that I built this year were all done with exclusively this stuff, just because I wound up hand brushing everything on there pretty much. I didn't do much airbrushing on it, but I have done some airbrushing. Used some of this on a couple of the ship models that I built, and it worked out just fine. But again, just kind of keep in mind, it is a little bit on the soft side. They're they do have a gloss version and a matte version of this stuff, but the gloss, don't expect it to be super glossy. I look at it more as a satin finish. So if you're expecting like a really high gloss, shiny gloss, you're not gonna be happy with that. You're gonna want to top coat it with some some of your favorite clear gloss coat, like Testers or Duplicolor or whatever you're using out there. And then they're flat, is really flat. So I really like it for doing figures, especially like clothing and landscape and stuff like that, where it's supposed to look truly a flat color. It does dry it, really really nice to where, in most cases, if you're looking for a flat finish, you won't even have to, finish up with this unless you're looking to protect it with something extra. So again, it has its pros and cons, just like everything else. So like I said, there's a lot of other people out there that have a lot more experience with this stuff than I do. I'm just kind of, you know, touching the tip of the iceberg with it. But so far, I really, really like it. And if you get used to using this stuff, I mean, you can get yourself a whole library of paints, a whole selection of paints, and not have this huge investment. You see guys on YouTube videos that have a wall of paints behind them, and it's all the expensive Tamiya, and all that, and that's several $1,000s worth of an investment right there, where you can basically cover all that ground for a fraction of that cost with using this stuff, and it'll pretty much get the job done in 99% of the cases. You just have to work with a little bit different. I find that it takes a little bit more patience. I've been used to working with solvent-based paints, which dry fairly fast, um, but you just have to make your coats, really light, and then you're going to have to put several coats on there. And so it's something to consider if you're going to have something that's going to be, really, really fine detail on it. Like I said, tiny scribe lines or fine mesh details. You may want to paint that area with something different, because this, even if you spray it, it's definitely thicker than regular paint. So, but there you have it. There's a little bit on these craft acrylic paints, a little on the bench tip for you as far as what I've learned working with it so far. But I have no complaints about it really at all. You just have to realize what it is that you're working with, and make sure that that's the right application for what you're doing at that particular time. A particular type of model that you're building. Like I said, if it's got moving parts and all that might be rubbing together, I would recommend using something a little bit different. But there you go, guys. So hope that helps you out. Some of the people who haven't tried this before, and uh, uh, you can experiment around with a little bit. Like I said, you can use just straight up regular tap water um, to reduce this stuff. I like to use the Windex or the windshield washer fluid, because it does have a little bit of alcohol in it, and that helps it dry just a little bit faster. It still doesn't dry nearly as fast as the solvent-based paints that I'm used to working with, but it definitely dries faster than water. So that's something you can keep in mind too, depending on. Now, one nice thing about this too, I forgot to mention, is that I don't seem to notice much of a difference with it, because down here in Texas where I'm at, we get these huge swings in humidity. Like one day it might be 40%, and the next day it might be 80% or 90%. And I haven't seemed to notice much of a difference in the drying time with it. In other words, even in high humidity conditions, I can paint with this stuff, and it dries pretty much at the same rate. So that might have something to do with it being water-based and all that. I'm not sure, but whereas my solvent-based paints, I have to be a little bit more wary of that, and I have to change my mixture on my reducer ratio accordingly, depending on what the humidity is, and especially on the clear coat, because clear coat, what'll happen with it, that high grade clear coat, the 2K stuff, if you spray on a really humid day and you don't reduce it enough, it will get a white haze in it from the humidity, and it will not come out. It will be permanently in there. So just a couple things you got to think about there too. So, but anyway, we'll call this little segment here a wrap, guys. I hope that helps out some of you out there. And again, good stuff, and it's very inexpensive, and you can get, I mean, they have a massive library of colors for this. These are just some of their basic, colors, but they also have all the metallics, like your golds, your silvers, all that kind of stuff. So there you go. All right, we'll take a break now, and we'll come back and have our shout outs and our Q&A for tonight. We'll have a little roundtable discussion about Star Trek Discovery. I'm sure a lot of you guys are anxious to talk about that. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and I know we got a lot of them in the audience too, so we'll have a little fun talking about Star Trek when we come back. See you in just a couple seconds. Okay, back with you again, everybody. I hope you enjoyed what we had for you tonight. Time for our usual part of the show where we head over to the chat session and see who all joined us tonight and shout out everybody that's here. And then we'll answer some questions if you have any, and we will get into our little Star Trek discussion there towards the end. Let's see, we have with us Shannon Freeman. We have Adam Corville, that's Triskelion, Mark Shue, Dadnator 24, Mike Kovac, Star Siege Player, Phil with the Sprue Mike Kovac. Great job on your Adam 12, Mike. I really enjoyed seeing that. PJC 2.0, Ron Mac 95, Outsider 238, James Schulenberg, Jake Janosek, let's see, Leona Timber Company, T Commando, Jim Clark, Big Stats, Heath Tompkins. Nice to see you tonight, Heath. Alpha Trion 92, Timothy Auger, Matt Alkire, DLC Model Builders. That's Armando. Nice to see you tonight, Armando. John Hunt. Derek Sabora. Kenny Conklin's here tonight with Sci-Fi Fantasy. Nice to see you, Kenny. Great to see Chris Cortell with us tonight. How you doing, Chris? Classic Plastic 101. Space Pirates Hobbies. Nice to see you out there too, Chris. Got Cal Sweet with us tonight, 2000 SPQR. Brian Knowles. Dave Hernandez. John Paul. Bill Tilley's with us tonight. Thomas Johnson. Todd Davies. Todd might be new to our chat group here tonight. Welcome, Todd. Hope you enjoyed yourself tonight. Great bunch of people in here. NASCAR and Broncos fans. Mike Pack, Barrick 13, Van Diemen's, Van Diemen's Land Model Bench. Mike Mitchell, Eddie Perez, John Hunt, Modeler X. Yeah, that's what it was, Modeler X. It was a Maquis Raider. I should have known that. I'm embarrassed to be a Star Trek fan. I just couldn't pick that. I knew I'd seen the design somewhere, but I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, it's a Maquis Fighter that we showed a little earlier. Red Shirt Forever. Dan Harris. Gary Jacquard. And the thing just like skipped a whole bunch on me there. I hope I didn't miss a bunch of people. Yeah, looks like it did. Let me roll back up here, guys. Okay, we've got Jabberwocky, Steve F., John Samuelson, Gary Curtis, Wolfpack, Mike Mitchell, Maximilian, and Maximilian asks a question there. Do I ever shop at Altex? Oh yeah, absolutely. We got 3 Altex stores here in San Antonio. They got a lot of electronics goodies and computer parts over there. Got Chuck Brooks on with us tonight, Gearhead Workshop. Ash Gabriel. He says he's tuning in from the UK. Yeah, sorry it's so late for you guys over there, Ash. We've got several people from the UK here. Mark Shue is asking, is there a date for the show, the model show in San Antonio? Yes, Mark, it's February 17th. That is on a Saturday. The show's unfortunately it's only one day. We keep lobbying them every year to make it longer, but it's one day. It starts at about 8 o'clock in the morning and ends at about 5:30 in the afternoon. Looks like we've got a lot of people this year planning on coming down, so I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to have a little get together here at the shop afterwards and have everybody on the show that's here. We're going to try to fit everybody in here. We'll see how that works out. I've got Scott Hatchard on with us tonight, Aussie Trekkie. Nice to see you, Scott. He's also from down there in Australia. Yeah, you guys will like the show itself. It's a great show, IPMS sanctioned. We got James Frost, e-biker. Nice to see you, James. Jason Matthews, Andrew Cho. Some more people popping in here. Space Dock Modeling. Fubar Model Yard. The Captain. I always hate it when I miss somebody. We've got Steve. Steve Sutton's on with us tonight. Scale Model Kit Review. Gave Steve a shout out for his YouTube channel last episode. Be sure and check out his channel, guys. He's got a lot of really cool stuff going on over on his YouTube channel. That's Scale Model Kit Review. He's a great builder, and he's always got some really cool model kit reviews, both current and really hard to find vintage kits, which I always find very interesting to look at. Keep up the good work over there, Steve. John Samuelson, Gary Curtis. Robert Morris. Todd Davies. James Schulenberg. All right, Rick, nice to hear that. He says Anthony booked their flights down to the show this year today, actually. So that's great, Rick. Glad to hear it. Glad to have you guys back again. Can't wait to see you guys. We had a really fun time last year. Heath Tompkins says he's still working on the chassis parts for the General Lee. He'll be putting up some more photos. Looking forward to it, Heath. Yeah, some of the guys are talking about the craft paints. They are, like I said, they are a very good value. I mean, compare that to a and you know it seems like a small bottle, but when you're diluting it down, you know you can make it go a long way. So for $1 or whatever these things cost, compared to like I mean it's getting ridiculous what these cans of Duplicolor and Tamiya and all those are costing. You know the old testers spray cans even. Um, they are what $7 or $8 now. So yeah, a lot of bang for your buck. See if we've gotten anybody else that popped in. Ted Pelzini. I hope I'm not blowing up your name, Ted. I try my best. Okay, well, I think we got through everybody that's here. If you're here and you're watching and you're part of the chat group, make sure you type a little something in the chat box there so your name will pop up and we can give you a shout out. So if anybody has any questions that they want to ask me or if they want to ask anybody else that's in here, now's the time to fire those up. And then we'll get into our little Star Trek round table. Timothy's Model Car Workshop. How you doing, Timothy? Nice to have you with us tonight. Aussie Trekkie says he has a video for me to watch. I'll definitely check it out, Scott. If it's have you uploaded it already? Okay, it's pronounced Polizny. Okay, gotcha, Ted. Yes, PJC 2.0. I've built a couple of those General Lee kits. The large MPC kits. Yeah, I built one for myself. I built one for Jeremy, and I built one for a client. It's a it's a nice kit. It needs some work though to make it right. The wheels are too wide. You'll find out that the wheels want to stick out past the fenders, and of course it has that weird front fender on it that you have to do some body work to if you want it to look right. Or if you don't care about that, don't worry about it. Heath has got to check out for the night. Well, we'll see you next time, Heath. Take care. Ash Gabriel is asking about what we think of the new ships from the new television series Discovery, the USS Shenzhou Discovery, and are we hoping for 1/350 scale kits? Well, uh, the Shenzhou I thought was a pretty neat design. I'm not really big on the design of the Discovery, um, so we'll just kind of have to see. But in 1/350 scale, the Discovery would be like 4 or 5 feet long. It's a huge ship. Um, so I'm not sure if we'll ever see a 1/350 scale of that. I know we're going to see the Franklin pretty soon from Mobius models from the last Star Trek movie. That looks like it should be a pretty nice kit. I think the designs for the ships in the new show are going to evolve a little bit. We'll just kind of have to wait and see where that goes. T Commando's asking everybody out there what's the what's the best way to transport large models long distances in a car? Just pack it with plenty of foam padding and plenty of support. That's the best thing I can tell you. Especially on like enterprise models that you have the big, nacelles hanging out there in the open. You can't just put it all in a box and put padding on it. You gotta. I've learned a lot from shipping models to my clients. Everything has to be totally supported where it can't flex and flop around. You can't just drop the model in a big old box of peanuts or whatever. Um, so I would think transporting it by truck's not going to be a lot different than transporting in a car. Just from my experience, get yourself some styrofoam and cut it out and make your shapes and everything so it's kind of supported, and then cocoon that whole thing in some foam rubber like several layers thick. Maybe put it in a double box. Um, but yeah, you really can't be too careful with packing it. And then of course, it all depends on how much small little fragile items you got sticking out, from it, like the deflector dish or little things. You got to keep clearance around that, or if it rubs on anything, it's going to break it off. So there's a lot to think about on that. You just have to kind of custom make something. Round two has Michael Mitchell's asking about the licensing rights. Far as I understand it, they have the license for everything from Next Generation on back, and Mobius has all the J.J. Abrams stuff. So all the new movies, the 3 new movies, and possibly the new TV series, because that's also being produced by J.J. Abrams' production company, Bad Robot. So it's a really strange situation they're in with Star Trek, because we can talk about that here in a little bit when we get into this, but Star Trek is actually owned separately by CBS and Paramount. Supposedly Paramount has all the rights to the classic series stuff and Next Generation and all that, and then CBS has the rights to all the J.J. Abrams stuff. And so when you saw, for example, in the new series, when you saw the phaser and the communicator that sort of looked like the old stuff, they had to pay for the licensing. CBS actually had to pay Paramount for the licensing to use that. It's a really strange setup, and that accounts for some of the reason why you see the Klingons looking drastically different, the uniforms looking different, the design of the ships looking drastically different. That's because there's licensing issues that they're fighting. They're actually could be sued by their parent company if they use certain things that are not approved through a license agreement. It's a really, really strange. I think they need to work that out somehow, and if they can't figure it out, both of them give it up and sell it to Disney or somebody like that can put it all together and make it, cohesive and. Yeah, it might be the other way around. I think T Commando might have that right. I think CBS has the classic Star Trek stuff, and Paramount has everything from the new movies on. And it's really a goofy situation. But a lot of the fans aren't aware of that, and that's why the new series Discovery, a lot of the look that you're seeing in there, they couldn't do that unless CBS or vice versa, depending on who owns the rights to it. It's really screwy. So, talking about the new TV series a little bit, I will say that being a longtime fan, like a lot of you guys out there, um, first of all, I'm going to say that I'm glad that Star Trek is on the air. As a fan, I don't want to see Star Trek fail, because it's if this fails, it could be a long time before we see more Star Trek. Now I know that there's another project going on that's being produced by Nicholas Meyer, who directed Star Trek II and Star Trek VI. The story that they're supposedly developing is a backstory about Khan and his years on Earth and all that. But and that sounds interesting. But if you think about that, Khan's years on Earth, there's not going to be a lot of Starfleet involved or Star Trek because that didn't even exist during Khan's time, during the 1990s. So I don't know how much about Star Trek it's going to involve unless they do some flashing forward and flashing back and things like that. But as far as the new show goes, for me it's going to take a while to get used to the look of the Klingons. I thought there was too much dialogue with the Klingons as far as I don't want to spend an hour reading subtitles. Um, I thought their dialogue was like too slow and too broken apart. If you go back and look at the cadence or the tempo of, for example, the way that the Klingons spoke when we first heard them speak Klingon in Star Trek the Motion Picture at the beginning, they didn't pause so long between their words or whatever, and um, these guys almost sounded like to me like they had an accent. Like if you guys have seen the movie Enemy Mine, the Lou Gossett Jr. character where he was Darwich, that's how they sounded to me. I mean, they were they were they're pausing in between their talk. Their words was too long, and it just dragged out and dragged out and dragged out. And they have so much prosthetics and stuff on that you really can't see. To me, the actors don't have much of an opportunity to act. They can't really do very much facial expression, or whoever they get in those outfits, they have to be really good at acting with their eyes because that's about all they got to work with. And now I understand that these uniforms or costumes that they were wearing were um, more like ceremonial kind of. They were having a big meeting and everything. Because I sure hope they're not their regular costumes or uniforms are not going to be that like cumbersome and stiff. Um, as far as the whole thing. But I mean, we're starting out this series with a war, and the very fact that Star Trek is supposed to be about exploration with some action mixed in. You kind of have to think about, okay, where does it go after they get past the war part? I mean, if you start off with all the really intense action at the very beginning, then doesn't it kind of have to slow down after that and maybe get boring? I don't know. And then, of course, the biggest thing that I had a real problem with was I'm going to be curious to see what you guys think reading these replies here was the number one character, first officer who's supposedly been with her captain for 7 years, all of a sudden, and on top of it with like Vulcan training, who are supposed to be really, really cool, calm, and collected, just freaks out basically on the first situation they run into. That's because it sounds like up to this point they've been just actually been doing a lot of kind of boring missions and stuff, nothing really super exciting. Um, but the first encounter that they have where it's kind of a dicey situation, she freaks out and mutinies against the captain, and Vulcan neck pitches the captain and has to be locked up in the brig. And basically, in most, like if you were in the Navy or something that did that, your career is over. And I would think that you'd have to go through like a lot more evaluation and all that in order to make it to the level of being like the second in command of a starship. That you'd want people that are like extremely stable, and you'd be on the same page with your captain. Like, could you imagine after that many years of Picard and Riker together that Riker wouldn't be on the same page with Picard in a situation like that? Like, they would just have to look at each other on the bridge and know, okay, this is exactly what I would do. The only reason that they would do something weird like that is if like they were under the influence of an alien, forcing them to do it, or we've seen episodes like that. It just seemed so weird, and this person should have never been promoted to being in a command position at all. So I had a really big problem with that part of it too. It made for an interesting story, and a lot of action and everything, but as far as Star Trek lore and just general chain of command type stuff that you would see, like I said, in the Navy or something like that, it didn't make any sense whatsoever. And in real life, this person would probably have blown their entire career and never be allowed to be in charge of anything again. no matter how smart they were or whatever. But I mean, in general, I thought the acting was pretty good. I liked all the characters. I'm not too sure about the well, my whole species is all about sensing death. You know, he to me having him around all the time would be kind of a downer. But um, we'll just have to see how they flesh that character out. And then of course we got a whole new crew we're going to meet in this next episode. All the the people on Discovery, the captain of that ship. I like the actor who's playing that part. That maybe shows some promise. But we'll see. So I'm just kind of looking at some of the things you guys are saying here, and a lot of you seem to be thinking the same thing. Like I said, they have to understand in making this that you just can't. Trek fans have been asked over the last few years to accept a lot of changes already, and you can only take that so far. Otherwise, if you're gonna do that, just make a new science fiction show, but don't call it Star Trek. Like, for example, this show right here, if it wasn't being called Star Trek and it was just a standalone, sci-fi, some kind of new sci-fi show that they put a different title to it, I'm sure it would be getting, pretty much positive reviews. But the fact that it's Star Trek, they should understand that there's going to be a certain kind of feedback from longtime fans that know that there's this established universe that you just can't write it off and say, well, forget all that, and we'll give them whatever we feel like and they'll like it. That's not going to happen. We're willing to put up with so much, and then the whole thing with Sarek being able to mind meld from the other side of the universe and stuff like that. That was something new. I thought the actor playing Sarek was great. And like I said, overall, thought the acting overall was pretty good. So, anyway, just a couple thoughts about that. I was really curious to see what you guys thought about it. But again, I'm going to keep a positive attitude on it. Now, from what I understand, and a lot of you guys may have been doing this too, I watching lots of behind-the-scenes videos and reading everything I could about it. Apparently, we're going to see a major change after like the 4th episode. So like episode 5 is when the producers and everybody else seem to feel like that's when they really started getting their sea legs, so to speak, and getting it figured out, and that the fans may notice that they kind of all of a sudden go in a like almost totally different direction. So I'm kind of curious about what that might be, and that maybe they had already produced these first 4 episodes and got some feedback from the fans and said, okay, that's not working, let's do this instead. So let's wait and see what happens there, and maybe we'll get some of these little things fixed up. I heard that the streaming access on CBS was really bad too. I heard that it was chattering a little bit. I watched it on Netflix, and it played pretty good there. But I heard that the CBS one was buffering pretty bad and everything, so that might be something they have to figure out too. They may have gotten more people on board than they were ready for. Crashed the server. Yeah, and T Commando, like he's saying there, I think it might be a mistake to have set this as supposedly 10 years before before Kirk and Spock, because when you do that, you're boxing yourself in, and then obviously the technology is not matching up. The look of everything. You just like, when did they have LCD touch screens and all that in the original series, and holograms and all that kind of stuff? I mean, I think that was a bad idea. They just should have picked a timeline that was slightly past the next generation or something like that and went with it. Because saying it's 10 years before, that's the same mistake that Enterprise did. And right away when you saw Enterprise, you thought, well, everything on on that show looks more modern than the original series. Yeah, and Chris Cortell's saying there that I've watched a couple of episodes of Orville. I thought the first episode was a little rough, but it's getting better. Orville is actually pretty good. remember the original series of Star Trek actually had quite a bit of humor in it. And there was no humor in this Discovery. I mean, it was all dark, very dark. A lot of dying and a lot of destruction. Right, and we remember, I mean, like Jim Clark saying there, the Star Trek The Next Generation, it got off to a rough start. I thought the Encounter at Farpoint pilot was decent, and then remember the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, um, it was they were just rehashing original series scripts, the Naked Now instead of the Naked Time, several episodes, and the acting I thought was really stiff and really wooden, and it I didn't think the Next Generation really took off and really got its bearings until like season 3. So um, hopefully we don't have to wait that long, but that's why I say it's still worth giving it a chance. Right, and a lot of you are saying the same thing. Yeah, the Next Generation was. I mean, in fact, they almost didn't make it. I mean, by the time they were getting close to wrapping up season 1, there was kind of a. It wasn't a for sure thing that they were going to renew it. It didn't get off to a very good start. Yep, some people are having to call it a night. Good night, Dennis. Federation Shipyard. But we're all fans, so I'm sure deep down we're all wanting it to succeed and wanting to give it a chance. I mean, as a true fan, you don't want to be hating on something that. I mean, we all made comments about it as it was. We were seeing these little snippets here and there, like we didn't like the design of the ship, and you know, um, and the Klingons looked weird and all that. But like I said, if it, as a fan, you definitely want to see Star Trek succeed because unfortunately, these executive types that run the whole thing, they don't tend to take the blame when something fails like that. They'll blame it on the fans. They'll say, "Well, we gave them Star Trek, and they didn't like it. It's done. It's worn out. So we're not doing it anymore. It's going to lose money." They won't they won't ask themselves, "Hey, did we mess it up?" I mean, so we gotta kind of hope that they work it out, give it a shot, and because right now, from what I've been hearing, that the movies are totally on hold. They lost a lot of money on the last movie, even though kind of an irony of that is that the last movie was the best of the three so far. So, but it didn't do very well at the box office here in the states, and so that whole thing's been put on hold. Um, so we'll just have to see. And Big Stats has got to check out. See you next time, Big Stats. So it looks like a lot of you guys are thinking the same thing. So we'll just have to all wait and see, and we'll keep on talking about it as it goes along. I'm just glad to have it back on, back on the air. It sucks that you have to pay for it, um, but I think that whole pay-per-view thing is going to collapse under its own weight too. I mean, because if you guys have been following the news, Disney now is going to start its own streaming service. So they're yanking all their movies off of Netflix. So anything Marvel, Disney, anything that Star Wars, anything that Disney owns, it's gone off of Netflix. So, I don't know what you guys are paying, but my cable bill here with my phone and my internet's close to $200 a month already. And so if you think I'm going to be able to afford $5 or $8 a month to watch Star Trek, and then another $10 to watch Marvel, and another $10 to watch, whatever else, and another 10. And in other words, there's 30 or 40 companies out there that got all this stuff. It's not going to work. People are not going to. It's not going to happen. People just simply cannot afford it. I mean, my cable bill is already completely outrageous. I think that's outrageous to $200 a month to watch TV, and hell, I don't know what kind of package you guys have, but I have like 600 channels, and there's like 5 channels that I watch. The rest of them are garbage. I'm not into reality shows or any of that stuff. So it's getting pretty crazy. And nobody can tell them that. They smell the money, and the only way they're going to realize it is when it just starts all collapsing and they're not getting any business and people are cutting the cable and going to streaming or whatever other way they can watch TV. There's always a way around it. Yeah, I mean, and if Disney makes that move, which they already have done, that's going to start off a whole domino effect. You wait and see. All these companies are going to be looking for a way to get in on that. All these executives are in these boardrooms are going, oh yeah, look at we can make a ton of money, but they don't. That's a problem with a lot of these companies anymore. They don't look at things long term. They look at next quarter profits. That's all they think about, and they don't build their companies for like long-term success anymore. It's all about the next quarter, how much profit they can show their shareholders. And I believe in a I do believe in a capitalistic society and all that. We didn't become, the greatest country, one of the greatest countries on the planet without it, but it can get carried away, and like I said, that's the downside of that system. The greed can take over. And I don't want to be getting into politics or becoming, preaching on a soapbox here too much, but I think all you people are probably thinking the same thing I am as far as, you know, we've only got so much in the piggy bank. Most of us aren't rich. Well, so anyways, guys, it's been a great discussion tonight. Really enjoyed chatting with you guys. Great to be back with you again. Don't forget, there are some other Halloween community builds out there, and I believe they've all said that if you've built a model for this one, you can also put it in over there. So you've got Kenny over there at Sci-Fi Fantasy. You can send your pictures of your model over to him so he can post it on his website for part of their group build. And then you've got Kenny at Mindless Model Works that also hosted a group build this year. So make sure you tell Kenny that you finished up a kit for his group build if you did one, and kind of spread it all around. Everybody out there does a really good job of promoting our hobby and keeping people interested in everything. And they're all it's a lot of hard work to keep up with all that stuff. So make sure and help them out, guys. We're gonna call this a wrap. We'll be back a week from this Sunday. And then again, like I said, if you're still wanting to get involved in our Halloween group build, make sure you jump in. We've got still a whole month yet to go, so you got time. Just pick you out a nice little kit and have some fun. And you can build as many models as you want. And don't forget, if you do finish your build, to post your pictures over at the Google page. Don't email them to me this year, guys. It's not going to do you any good. It gets scattered all over the place. It's a lot easier for me to go over to the Google page and grab all the pictures off of there. So post your pictures of your builds over there, and I'll get them all. And then I'll put a reminder up on the site, just maybe a couple days before the end to make sure everybody remembers, and we'll get all our pictures gathered up and have a great slideshow this year and have some fun with it. So that's a wrap, everybody. Hope you enjoyed what you saw tonight. We'll see you next time. And I guess until next time, good night, everybody, and happy modeling, everyone.